Yeah, that's right. Black leopard. Anyways, for the type of aggressive inline that I do, and for my level of skating, I think I'm gonna stick with the anti-rocker wheel setup. Here's why. I have tried a bunch of different setups over the past couple of months. Yes, flat setups ride so smooth. It feels awesome even on aggressive skates when you're riding around on a flat setup. Swerves, curves, carves, your weight is more distributed, sure. However, for me and my skill level for grinding and ledges especially, actually really only with ledges, I just want that freedom where I'm not gonna have to worry about any kind of wheel bite or any kind of wheel squeak or slow down or whatever. So the first flat setup that I went back to was the them frames with undercover 55mm 92A wheels, flat. And that was a lot of fun. I love this wheel. The 92A hardness is nice and fast. Undercover urethane obviously is amazing. They're really small wheels, so top sides were fairly easy. Again, on occasion though, I'd still get some wheel bite and some wheel squeak or whatever. I thought maybe I'd just get used to it and get better at it. Here's a session on my 909s with them street frames and the 55s flat. Just in the back of my mind, I'm wondering if I'm gonna hook those middle wheels because I'm not low enough or not positioned correctly, and I feel like that really messes with my confidence. So from there for flat, I went back to wish frames. I actually put 68/60 on the wish frame. Now I know that's not exactly what the wish frame is rated for, but it's not that far off. And I put those on my Adapt Brutale. I thought it was okay. They just felt a little bit too tall. Here's one of the sessions I did with that setup. Again, I got a lot of good tricks in. The middle wheels are very protected on wish frames, but that frame just feels super, super tall. Especially for me, I'm used to them street frames, which are very, very, very low. So I tried the same setup on my them 909s. Here's that session. Again, I just felt like they were too tall, and I was struggling a little bit with top sides. Yes, I put bigger wheels on those frames than what they're rated for. It's supposed to be 65/58. I was experimenting with 68 and 60, but I mean, that's only a few millimeters off. I guess that could make a big difference, but I still think that I would be not so happy with the height of that frame. I just feel like you're really, really, really high off your grind. Then I decided to do big 68s on my Featherlite 3s. I think the Featherlite 3s are too thin, and I was using the medium-sized Featherlite 3, so they were too short, and I just felt like I struggled with top sides a lot. So then I went back to the 55/92s on them street frames on my Brutales, and I had a pretty decent session with that. I was actually shocked with how well that flat setup rode and how well paired Adapt Brutales are with them street frames. Here is that session. Now, I've always wanted to try the Create Original OG frames. So I got a pair of those, and I actually rode the Create Original OG frames flat with the 55/92A wheels on my Adapt Brutales, and I really, really, really like that. Here is that session. This one is the beautiful logo that Roll Over the Hill made for me, Chris. And it looks super sweet in the gray Create Original frame. I made a custom graphic for my Moopy 909, and then I also made a custom graphic for my Ritter 909, and I put little tiny shots of Pat Ritter actually skating on his pro model on the graphic. These did really good with the flat setup. These frames are definitely a lot lighter. That's what's super awesome about them. Especially if you were to take the graphic out and the shield, they're almost as light as Featherlite 3s. And the large size is a very similar length and height, and I guess it's called the wheelbase height, to the them frames. It's super close. Also, they're very thick right here. They ride really nice. There's a lot of power transfer. They don't feel squishy like Featherlite 3s. Featherlite 3s feel a little bit squishy sometimes. I don't know. That could be just me and how I skate. These are like Featherlite 3s, but way more solid. The groove is a little deep. Some people might love that. I liked it, except I don't think I'm used to it. I'm definitely more used to the groove on the them street frame. So I did the Create Originals on the Moopy 909, 60 millimeter undercover 90A wheels for the outside. And then on the inside was 50/50 anti-rockers. I always make sure that my anti-rockers have bearings and that they spin, because when you go over steep rollers and your anti-rockers hit a little bit, if they don't spin, you can kind of slide out a little bit. I personally don't like that at all. Anyways, here's a session that I did with these frames set up anti-rocker. Now, during that session, I switched over to my Ritter 909, and that was set up 55 flat. Right off the bat, I was getting wheel bite, and I realized it was because the ledge wasn't very waxed. And I had waxed it with this wax that wasn't that good. So then I went and waxed it with Sonic Wax. Best wax ever, in my opinion. Such awesome stuff. After I did that, definitely had a better time on the flat setup. I was sliding much, much, much nicer. Now, when it comes to coping and things like that, and rails, small rails, I don't mind flat setup. I actually do really good with the flat setup on coping because it kind of keeps you locked in a little better in that groove. And even if your wheels do hit, it's not like they jam at all. If I'm on a flat setup and I'm just doing low rails, I'm fine. So without question, flat setup gives you more speed. But for me, I think that a little bit of extra speed when I'm kind of more in a grinding mode, it doesn't really matter to me. I almost feel a little more stable on ramp sometimes when I'm anti-rocker because you're not swerving too much. In any event, I love these frames. The pros are riding them flat, the pros are riding them anti-rocker. These are awesome, awesome frames. Then I said, well, if I want to go faster with anti-rocker, I need bigger wheels. I know I had some trouble on the Featherlite 3s with the big 68s. Just to test it out, I put the big 68s on the them street frames on my Moopy 909. I was shocked with how well I did grinding with this setup. And these big wheels were nice and fast. In fact, I have cheaper bearings in here than I do on my 60s anti-rocker. I usually use Bone Swiss if I'm doing 60mm anti-rocker because Bone Swiss are very fast. But in here, I have the ILQ9 bearings, and with the big 68, these things fly. Now, these are the 68mm 88A Icon wheels, and they have a bullet profile. Now, combined with the them frame, I don't know if it's because of the profile or the frame itself or what it is, but I was actually able to get topsides as if I was riding on my 60s or my 55 flat setup. I didn't notice it any more difficult with these big 68s. So I decided to film a session with them street frames and the 68s. And in that same session, I went back to 60s on them street frames. Now, from this session, I noticed that I have become very familiar with the groove on them street frames, especially anti-rockered. Man, I grinded so well with them street frames. Whether it's the 60 or the 68, I feel like I was doing really, really good. If I was gonna go do another game of Blade with Chris, I would definitely go them street frame, anti-rocker with 60s. Right now we're 2 for 2. Game 5 though, it's all over, buddy. Probably not. He'll pull a crazy negative trick on me and then I'll be done. Then the question is, do I like the them street frames anti-rocker better than the Create originals? That's a tricky one. In order to fit 68s on here, you'd have to mod the frame a little bit. But I think if you had to mod it, it wouldn't be that much of a mod, and I really don't think it's going to interfere with the strength of this frame and that solid feeling that you get with this frame. I also feel like that the them frame, whatever it's made out of, the plastic, slides a little bit better than the Create original, although this thing slides really good. It's a very small difference. And yeah, for me, I think I'm just used to, not saying one is better than the other, but I think I'm just used to the groove on them street frames. Both frames on the sidewall, it's fairly thick. I actually think the Create originals might be a little bit thicker, which is nice. They're also tapered so you don't get any kind of scrape while you're riding. I think that them street frames do feel a little more solid. However, them street frames feel heavier, and they are. Maybe by like 5 ounces or so. A lot of you would be like, are you kidding me? That's nothing. I know, after jumping all day, especially if you're trying to do a handicap rail or a handrail, taller handrail, jumping and jumping and jumping, man, 5 ounces per skate could definitely add up over a long period of time. I think that's technically like a half a pound for both skates. Again, when you get really tired, a half a pound can make a big difference. So if I'm gonna go skate a mini park, fly around on the ramps, or grind on ledges, I'd probably go with the them street frame anti-rocker, either with the 68 or the 60s. And I think if I was gonna go do handrails or anything like that, I think I'd go with the Create originals. They just feel lighter. which is super nice. But at the same time, they're still solid. Also, they roll really fast. Yeah, no complaints with how they roll. I just think I'm not super used to a deep groove. I don't know. These are great frames, and you could put your own graphics in them. I mean, that is super sweet. I have another video about that, on how I put the graphics in there and how I made the graphics. I'm working on that right now. Definitely one of my favorite frames of all time. I don't know. I don't like that them frames are heavier, but they are super solid. You got the extra bridging right here. They almost feel like they could be like a metal frame or something like that. In any event, I think I'm gonna be sticking with anti-rocker for a while. To be fair, there's a lot of flat setups that I have not tried yet. I know the Kaiser frames are supposed to be amazing. I think the one thing I didn't like about the Kaiser frames was that it was very difficult to get the middle wheels in. Sadly, I felt very similar about the Create Originals. Still easier than the Kaiser frames, if I remember correctly. I also don't like the double-sided hardware. The way the hardware is on these frames is very similar to Wish frames. I mean, there is just barely enough room in there to squeak in your wheels with your bearings. After a while, it gets a little bit better, and sometimes you can get your axles off with only one tool. Other times you can't. Them street frames, the hardware on these guys is just awesome. They have the one-sided tool, which I just love, and there's the perfect amount of space in here to get your wheels in. You don't have to bang them in, they just drop right in, and then you screw on your axle. And you only need one tool. So I gotta say, I love the hardware on them street frames. Once again, I am sticking anti-rocker. Now, I don't have any video of this yet, but this setup right here is amazing. These are the undercover 65s. They're actually more like 68. It's hard to find these right now. I found them at Thorough Shop, which is really cool. But these are the undercover 65 88A, but they're more like 68. That's actually the same exact wheel as the Icon 68. Again, to my surprise, I was grinding no problem. Not catching my wheels at all on the ledge, on the rails. This setup was awesome. I'm so excited about the setup. And I'm actually really excited about these 68mm wheels too. I just want to have fun with my grinds and not be terrified of a backside Savannah like I would be when I'm doing it with a flat setup. Again, my opinions are based on the type of skating that I do and my skill level, which is not that great. I skate a lot of mini parks with perfect ledges that have coping on them and perfect little practice rails that are not that tall, and I'm riding around on ramps that are smooth and nice. I don't do a whole lot of street skating, although I do love street skating. It's just really difficult for me to get out there and find spots. Those are my opinions for my type of skating. You can tell me that I'm just a baby in the comments and that I need to tough it out, just go flat. I think I am gonna stick with anti-rocker for now. I love wheels, it's like candy to me. Oak City Skate Shop, undercover 60mm 98.